Hey, Leilani with the Magical Solution here. Please go back and watch the video that this comment is under. Unfortunately, they had their duets and stitches off, so I had to do it with my own comment, but that video is one of my favorite content creators here on the subject of Espiritismo, specifically prayer, and it is a beautifully stated video. However, there was something said in there that I want to expand on and kind of dive deeper in. So in the video, he discusses the cultures and the syncretism that was happening in the Caribbean during the time that Spiritism was being brought in, along with a lot of other spiritualities, in addition to the spiritualities that were already there and the folk spiritual traditions that were already there by the indigenous people. And so during this time, there was a lot of exchange. Now, listen, those of us who are from the Caribbean, or descendant of the Caribbean, or part of the diaspora like myself, it's nothing new. We know our history. We know that the Caribbean was a port and continues to be a port of cultural, spiritual, linguistic, culinary exchange. And that has not changed, right? So even at that time, when all of these cultures were coming in, and the cultures that were there, that were being enslaved and genocided, basically, were trying to survive, specifically their spiritual practices. Spiritism and the blooming of Espiritismo was like a freaking saving light, a saving grace, because it gave us the platform needed to be able to practice our spiritualities in secret within the same sort of digestible ritual that Catholics, Protestants, and Christians are used to seeing. However, it allowed us to practice our indigenous practices and our other spiritualities under those guises in a safe manner and in a respectable manner. So I wanted to kind of come on here because, there's a lot of discussion right now in the spiritual community, and specifically regarding Espiritismo, spiritualism, and spiritism. But the discussions are really, they're heated because in Espiritismo, for those of you who don't know, we have a thing called the Boveda. It's an altar in which we honor our spiritual court. And our spiritual court, where the controversy comes in, is that our spiritual court is comprised of spirits that walk with us. And these spirits can come from traditions from all over the world. Okay? It is set up that way because we in the Caribbean understand our mixture. We were mixed with Afro, Indigenous, and European things, amongst others. So like for myself, I'll give you a perfect example. For myself, I've got a lot of Asian in my genetic background. And so you'll see a lot of that in my court as well. But anyway, where the discussion gets kind of weird regarding our spirits from all over the world is whether or not Espiritismo is a religion of appropriation or whether it is a spiritual practice of synchronicity, okay? Synchronizing these cultures. And here's what I'm going to say about that, because I feel like it's something that needs to be said, okay? There's a couple of factors that we need to take into place. The first factor is this. Yes, your spiritual court will in fact have spirits that may be genetically connected to you. Your spiritual court may in fact have spirits that were once alive, who have ascended, who would be considered elevated ancestors. Your spiritual court may in fact include past lives. Your spiritual court may also include energies that you are not related to, that come from different parts of the world, that have been assigned or have chosen to walk with you. So please know the difference between the ones whom you are related to, the ones who were never human, and the ones who were once living but are not related to you at all. Because this is where these discussions kind of get weird, because the ones who are quote unquote not related to you, who decide to walk with you, what do you do with them if they come from these other religions around the world, right? And that conversation is talked about from these perspectives of either appropriation or being respectable. And the truth of the matter is that this argument is hard to have with regards to a spiritual practice who sees spirits as something that is approached with respect and through relationship, right? Like it's really hard to kind of put rules on something that doesn't really have those kinds of rules. Espiritismo doesn't really have those kinds of rules. Espiritismo does not say that just because you have a Cherokee Indian in your spiritual court, you are now allowed to call yourself a Cherokee, or you are now allowed to practice sacred Cherokee medicine without having gone through a Cherokee medicine man. Like, we've never said that. Same thing with if you notice that a spirit walks with you who is similar or appears or has identified as a spirit from a closed practice. Espiritismo does not say that now you can start practicing that closed practice, or now you can start honoring that spirit outside of that closed practice context. What we are saying is that if you have identified that spirit walking with you, and that spirit comes from a culture that is not yours, or comes from a culture or a spiritual practice that you do not practice, you still, if you decide, because here's another thing too, hundreds of spirits walk with you. That doesn't mean you have to honor every single one of them, right? If you decide to build a relationship with this spirit, you still have to go through the right channels to do that. And that spirit will guide you to those right channels. Okay? You also have to take into consideration even the ones whom you are genetically related to. So for myself, for example, I have African and Taino on my father's side. I have Taino, Spaniard, and Japanese on my mother's side, right? I have Taino on both. Would I identify as Taino right away, knowing that? Or if I have a Taino ancestor walking with me, do I identify with that immediately just because I have that in my genetics? No, because I didn't grow up in that culture. I didn't know that language. I didn't know the spirituality of the Tainos. I had to reconnect. I had to go and learn about that stuff first before I can go and then work with these spirits. Same thing with the Japanese side of me. Should I pick up Shintoism? Should I pick up Buddhism? Should I pick up, these traditions of Japan just because it's in my genetics or because a Shinto spirit walks with me? No. This is what we're talking about. These are the conversations that we're talking about. And a few books that I recommend are Developing the Dead, Afro-Asian Connections in Latin America and the Caribbean, The Luminous Brotherhood, Afro-Creole Spiritualism in 19th Century, and Governing Spirits, Religion, Miracles, and Spectacles in Cuba and Puerto Rico in 1898 and 1959. These are some amazing historical books that will help you sort of wrap your mind around some of these ideas and some of these debates that we're having, right? But let me know how you feel. Let me know what your thoughts are, because the truth of the matter is, in my personal opinion, Espiritismo is a spiritual practice of decolonization. It gives us the platform to work with these various spirits in a respectable manner. And it does so without these walls. And I think that that's what makes it so beautiful and so adaptable. It is something that can be practiced alongside your other religions. This is how we grow.